gummy bear.
It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this for January 10th, 2024. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, Indiana Jones might get another crack at relevancy in 2024, and Suicide Squad sounds pretty rough. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host of Game Mess Mornings. It's Mike Minotti, everybody. Mike, how are you doing?
I'm always pretty rough.
That's what we say about Mike. He's the roughest guy we know. DMX, when he was talking about the Rough Riders, talking about you. Is that DMX, everybody? I can never remember.
No, that's Teddy Roosevelt.
That was Teddy Roosevelt's Rough Riders. That's right. Teddy Roosevelt rode with Master P and all those guys. It was very, very good times.
Right. Then he shot a man in the back as he was running up a hill and was proud of himself.
He was proud, and then that's what most rap songs are about, actually.
I believe you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Like, how would you know any other way?
I wouldn't.
Mike, how are you doing?
I'm pretty good. Yeah. I get a little bit post-holiday depression, I have to admit. There's so much going on the holidays, and it's fun, and everything's like pretty and alive, and it's kind of done. And hey, you got to open up some Nutella for that kid. I just had to
what are you going to do with that? Are you going to go eat it? Okay, all right, go. Don't make a mess.
Kids love Nutella. I never was a Nutella person, to be honest.
Nutella is like really good, but it's so rich that it's like too much after like a couple of bites. Kids don't care though. Kids don't have that thing that makes you say, "Oh, this is too much."
Right. Back to my depression. No, not depression, but just like, it's like after the holidays, it's like a bit of a come down period. And I'm always like bad about putting my decorations away because I'm lazy. But then it just becomes a reminder of how like the holidays are ethereal and not here anymore. So, but that's okay.
Yeah, I
just have to get through the cold, bitter winter, and maybe I'll feel better again.
Yeah, I'm not exactly that same point, but I am at a point where it's like, okay, the Christmas tree is so big and there's so much, and I haven't had time, and that is a reminder. And then it's been rainy, so it's not even like snowing, which I think would actually help me. But then it's rainy, so I can't even like go walk outside in the morning like I like to. Usually it's too like the path would be too muddy. So it's like, okay, well, even like how I would get some sunshine in my life is not happening. So yeah, definitely
can't even feel the sunshine.
That's right. Can't
have it brighten up your day.
Sunshine. That's right. Sonic the Hedgehog. I'll just have to listen to that song instead. Yeah, I'm at the very least, you're going to get a ray of sunshine and seeing me tomorrow. Maybe we're going to hang out a little bit tomorrow. We're
going to do an in-person podcast to do the Game Mess Game of the Year. I can't never do enough Game of the Years. And, I do have at least a few more gifts to hand out tomorrow, so I'll have a little bit holiday cheer at least.
Exactly, yes. Same here. That reminds me I should go wrap that present we got for you. So,
I got a Prezi.
Yeah, you got a Prezi coming your way. Watch out.
Material objects will always cure my depression.
Exactly. That's what this is all really about. That's what we need. All right.
Prezi's for Mikey.
Yay. Let's explain what we do here most weekdays. I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with, there's a report that Indiana Jones is launching this year, the video game from Machine Games. This is from Jonas Maki at Game Reactor. It's been quite a while since we saw a new game from the Swedish studio Machine Games. 5 years to be more specific, as Wolfenstein Youngblood launched in 2019. I guess I didn't even realize it's 5 years since that Wolfenstein.
Yes, it's like the standalone thing.
Yeah. Since then, they have been working on Indiana Jones, a game that was announced at the time when Microsoft bought Bethesda Game Studios in 2021. Since then, we haven't heard a whole lot about it, but leaked documents from the FTC versus Activision Blizzard trials revealed that it was supposed to be released in 2022, something that was made impossible as a result of the pandemic, and that it will be a PC and Xbox exclusive title. As it has been so very quiet about the game, most people assumed we would get to see it at 2025 at the very earliest, but fortunately enough, it doesn't seem like we'll have to wait that much longer. According to a new report from Tom Henderson over at Insider Gaming, Indiana Jones is in fact launching this year, something sources close to the game have confirmed. Henderson is known as a very trustworthy source on topics like this. Hey, that would be cool. When this year was getting started, as we were coming out of like the Game of the Year stuff, and we were doing, several shows, we're like, hey, what do you think's happening next year? Indiana Jones is never one that I thought was a realistic game to launch this year. And I don't necessarily know why. Like when you look at it, 5 years since Youngblood, why wouldn't it be ready?
I guess it's just because we never heard much except for that one teaser that was really teasery, right?
Right.
Not much there. It was just, Indiana Jones grabbing his hat or whip or something off a table. I guess these days we're always more cautious than anything else. I didn't consider it until, they talked about that Xbox Direct or whatever they call it. And it said in that picture, Indiana Jones, like, oh, you're going to talk about Indy?
Yep.
This early in the year, is that coming out this year? Oh, that'd be cool.
Yep. So January 18th is when that's next week, is when that developer direct is happening from Xbox and Bethesda. And one of the confirmed games to be at that event, Indiana Jones. And they tend to talk about games there when they have stuff to talk about. Hellblade 2 is also going to be in that. That could easily get a release date. Do you think coming out of that developer direct, we really do get a release window, let's say, for Indiana Jones?
I think we do. I think I think that's probably the goal here, right? Is to fill out the schedule for the rest of the year, at least a good bit. And if you get Indiana Jones, Avowed, and Hellblade 2 this year, these days, that's a pretty good lineup for a Sony or an Xbox, right? And maybe some other surprises peppered in here or there. There's some other game they're talking about. I forget about. I don't know as much about it, but I'd be pretty good with that, especially Indiana Jones. That's something I would look forward to. I still like the Indiana Jones character. It's been a long time since we really gave Indiana Jones game a good shot, and this is a incredible developer that makes a lot of sense with it. I'm a big Uncharted guy. We don't really get any of those these days, so this is it's not just the next best thing. It's just another good thing. So I'm hopeful. I want to see what this looks like.
Yeah, I agree completely. That's where I'm at, where I'm like, okay, that's a pretty good shaped year for Xbox, especially getting a lot of these details in January, because they could always reload in the summertime with something else for the holidays. Indiana Jones could easily they could be like, hey, it's coming out this fall. That I still expect. But it's like, hey, I'm fine with that. Tell me right now if that's coming out this fall. That's something to look forward to this year for Xbox in a way that well, I suppose everyone was looking forward to Starfield, and then, obviously a lot of people feel like they got rug pulled there. I think people would be willing to be like, hey, Indiana Jones from Machine Games, Wolfenstein people, like they know what they're doing. They know how to kill Nazis, all this stuff I want to do in an Indiana Jones game. I would be able to get some excitement going for the Xbox launch or release lineup going forward a little bit.
And it'll be, more than, last year it was kind of just all Starfield, right? Like we had the surprise of Hi-Fi Rush early.
Right.
Because, but that was great. But then after that, it was basically just Starfield. We had Redfall also, and that was a straight up disaster. So I think, maybe none of these games are going to have the hype that Starfield had going into it, but they could be better. And it's a more even spread. I don't really care that much about Hellblade 2, but I'm very interested in Avowed and Indiana Jones. So it's completely fine.
And yeah, and exactly. And for a lot of people, they're like picking 2 out of the 3. Some people are excited about all 3, but many people are excited about Hellblade 2. And so it's like, hey, yeah. And then they don't care about Indiana Jones because maybe it's something they didn't grow up with like we did, which is a real thing with Indiana Jones. And, we talked a little bit about this last night. This could be a chance for Indiana Jones to break out in gaming in a way that like the movie couldn't do because the movie had so much baggage. Coming with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and Spielberg moving on and them trying to figure out what the character would even be like at that point.
Right.
The video game can sort of wash its hands of a lot of that stuff and just be like, no, this is Indiana Jones is cool. Here's why.
Right. No, exactly. And, there's a very good sound-alike right now for Indiana Jones who's been doing that work. He's basically Harrison Ford sound-alike for a lot of things. So if they just get him, that'll be great. You could just make him young. You could just set it in the 30s like Indiana Jones kind of should be. I think that last movie, I think a lot of people saw and like, okay, that wasn't terrible. That was fine. But if it's not good enough to stay relevant, it was not a box office success. So maybe this can be the way for Indiana Jones to really become relevant again in the future. Like if this was somehow a Spider-Man level success. Imagine what that could do for the character. Now, it has a lot of things going against it for that, because Spider-Man, those games came out, were very good. And also, like, everything else Spider-Man was also popping off.
Spider-Man continues to be one of the most popular characters in the world constantly. So, yes.
Right.
But
so I don't know if this could do that, but it's going to help. It could help.
It could help. Absolutely. Now, what kind of game do you think this is? This is Machine Games. They made Wolfenstein. Is there any chance this is a first-person game?
It could be a first-person game. I think that could work. It could be a little difficult depending on how, I want to say, like, how platformy they get, but even stuff like Doom Eternal can do the first-person platforming relatively well. That's always the challenge with the Indiana Jones games, is what is the balance between the combat, the exploration, and these days the walking and talkingness, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they probably are going to look to an Uncharted. I bet third person is more likely, and I bet when we see this, we are going to see a lot of Unchartedness in it.
That's the right call. Sense. Yeah, it makes sense.
It's just the circle completing itself.
Yes, it really
right?
is. Yes. And it's there's a gap in that market. Like you said, we're not getting a lot of Uncharted anymore.
It's been a while since an Uncharted or a Tomb Raider at this point. So
right. And if we get one of those, when we know we're getting another Tomb Raider, that's still years and years off. This Indiana Jones. And like that is a space in gaming that can support three of those, even if all three were coming out relatively close to one another. I mean, beyond that, like it would probably be like, okay, no, I have Uncharted, I have Tomb Raider, or I have Indiana Jones. I don't need another one of those. But I think those three characters can all coexist, let alone Indiana Jones having this little pocket to himself to do something and make something happen.
Have you played a lot of other Indiana Jones games? Do you have any of those that you think fondly of?
I started and got a little decently into Fate of Atlantis, which
That's a good one.
It really enjoyed when I did play it. And then I always try to get Infernal Machine running. It's one of those N64 games that is very tough to emulate. And then it was a blockbuster. Right. It was a Blockbuster exclusive. So it's not like it's easy to go track down either. Or maybe it is. I never really looked too much. But you can get it working. And when I start playing, I'm like, I kind of like this. So, it's Factor 5. They did a decent job on it.
It's Factor 5 making a Tomb Raider, right?
Yes, and, exactly.
That's a good name. The Indiana Jones and the Infernal Machine.
I like it too.
Yeah, that's better than Dial of Destiny. Yeah, I kind of want to go back and play that. I kind of want to go play Emperor's Tomb and Staff of Kings, even weird things like that.
Me too.
But we basically have had one great Indiana Jones game with Fate of Atlantis. I actually never played the Super Nintendo one. That's basically just those Super Star Wars games, but with Indiana Jones. I assume they're very hard, but Fate of Atlantis is the one I always think of. So if you could do something that, like, story-wise is kind of in line with that in terms of feeling like an authentic Indiana Jones adventure, and you have gameplay that can kind of match up with that, you're going to be in good shape.
Yep. And that's kind of all I'm asking for here. And I'm just glad we're getting a new Machine Games game as well. I am a big fan of that studio. And Wolfenstein 3, it doesn't seem like that's happening anytime soon. So
you think they're going like super wheelhouse here, like straight up Nazis and maybe even like Christianity symbolism again?
I think so.
I think that's safe.
I mean, definitely Nazis, like 100% Nazis. Like that is 100% happening. Now, in terms of like, is the MacGuffin coming from Christian lore? I think that's like 80%. They could go some other direction and have fun with that. But, Christian lore is the safe one that always hits a little bit harder, even when it's a little bit like the weaker one, like the Cup of Christ. I'm a huge mark for that stuff. So yeah,
weaker like the Cup of Christ. Wow.
Someone's got to finally put that ass in his place, and I'm here to do it.
Incredible.
Get a better cup, loser.
It's a cup of a carpenter.
Yeah, exactly. Not like my mug collection, which is the cups of a really cool dude. All right. Sorry, Jesus. My bad.
I guarantee there will be certainly some kind of plot point or reference to the idea of Indiana Jones collecting artifacts maybe isn't a good thing. I think they're going to totally get meta with that.
I would be totally down if the plot is the inverted Indiana Jones way of like, we're going to actually steal something from a museum and put it back where it goes. That would be a really good idea.
Indiana Jones should meet some guys like, hey, actually, this was important to my culture and you don't have a right to it. And he like has to learn, see his ways, and like, yeah, it's like a reverse Indiana Jones. That'd be cool.
Yeah, exactly. Like, hey, the thing you did like is causing our culture to have an apocalypse, and then it's a hidden culture. Right. So can you please just go put that rock back?
It'll be so it's Temple of Doom with the stones, but the stones were taken by the British Museum.
Exactly. So yeah, let's make it happen. All right, and that's a studio that knows how to write that stuff, based on Wolfenstein, the New Colossus, which has had just some of the best writing in the history of games. All right, Suicide Squad previews paint a pretty meh picture. This is from Zach Swisen at Kotaku. The first hands-on preview of WB and Rocksteady's upcoming Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League are live now across multiple outlets. And while some folks are enjoyed playing the co-op shooter more than others, the general vibe I got after reading all these previews is not great. The consensus is that Rocksteady's Suicide Squad is a hodgepodge of generic open-world missions and clunky traversal mechanics that combine to create an underwhelming experience. He picked out some like choice quotes here from some of the previews. Here's one from GameSpot. Though each mission had different objectives, they all had the same basic gist of battling waves of enemies while swinging back and forth between rooftops. I'm like getting more disappointed as I read this, but open world missions where characters bark at you over the radio about how enemies are attacking point A or point B over and over don't seem to be breaking the mold, especially when plenty of live open world games now exist with a lot of the same kinds of content. Game Informer says, I started to feel a sense of sameness from many of the missions. Sure, each of them has a distinct dressing and the narrative reasons are varied, but many of the ones I played in Chapter 1 and Chapter 3 boiled down to going to an area and defeating all the enemies or defending a location against hordes of aliens. I really hope that as the campaign goes on, there are more of these kinds of more of these kinds of fights and less of the defeat all enemies. I guess he must have been representing some other kind of fight here, and more of the go down to point A and defend point B variety of missions. Yeah, me too. I hope that there's not a whole game of that. That sounds bad to me. That doesn't sound like what I want from a Rocksteady video game. I don't know, Mike. How are you feeling after these previews?
Not good. Previews usually give a lot of benefit of doubt, right? Because people know that they're playing a slice of a game. They kind of look for the bright side. Again, when the Redfall previews happened last year, those were often positive, right?
And people have been burned so many times, like when they said, oh, hey, 2 Humans seems pretty bad, and how wrong were they proven? Dennis Dyack won in the end there. Sorry.
Yeah.
That maybe not the case there.
No, hey, any way you could somehow clumsily make this about how Dennis Dyack sucks, I'm all for it. Don't worry.
Thank you. I appreciate that. How do you feel about it?
I know it's disheartening. This game never seemed like a good idea, and maybe that's all it just was. Maybe it just was a bad idea, and then, well, someone has this bad idea, but it got bots, so now we got to make this game for 7 years. Ugh. And hey, and then here we are. And gosh, we wondered this last time when they delayed the game. Would it have just been better to just get it out and move on? I don't know. Maybe we're still jumping the gun here. This game isn't out yet, but it's disheartening to see. It's not just that the reactions are negative, Jeff. It's just reading what they're saying. Yep. The game that they're describing just does not sound like anything I want right now.
Zach goes on to say, repetitive missions can still be fun to grind if the combat is a joy to play. I've sunk far too many hours in Destiny 2 over the years, not because it has incredible open world missions and public events. Let's be real here, they are basically all the same, but instead it's the satisfying and rewarding combat that keeps me around. Sadly, a number of Suicide Squad previews found the combat and traversal clunky and complained that the characters don't feel satisfyingly distinct from one another. There were also concerns about how chaotic and hard to parse the world and action is during big fights. And outside of combat, it sounds like the open world of Metropolis isn't all that interesting. This is from Eurogamer. Metropolis is a sprawling, vertical, polluted maze of buildings without clear routes or easily discernible landmarks. It's a backdrop to battles that's hard to navigate, unaided by a simplistic radar mini-map for finding enemies and friends alike. With violent explosions, special effects, damage numbers, quest markers, and more on screen at once, it all feels a little too difficult to parse. Mike, there's screenshots going around of
the UI.
Yeah. And then, the complaint here from Eurogamer is like, it goes beyond the UI. The world itself is designed poorly in such a way that it makes it difficult to navigate. Yeah. So that sounds like poison for me, where someone you guys watch me play games. It's an attention thing. It's hard for me to bring stuff in. If I'm going to experience a game like this, I'm out. No way. I need my time respected. This sounds like a real mess, Mike. How'd you feel about that screenshot that you saw?
I mean, it doesn't look good. I mean, honestly, it's, UI, I'm a little numb to. I play MMOs.
Sure.
Right? At a certain point, hey, your game has a lot of info that it has to get out there. Now, my question is, why does this game have this much info that it needs to get out there? More concerning is the game, the way it looks in some of these screenshots. Again, things kind of look samey and drab, and just I don't know. There's just a lot here that seems concerning. The fact that these four characters, even though one's a shark and one is Harley Quinn, they're all using the same weapons. The difference is the traversal, but ultimately the traversal is just about zipping around so that you can kind of run and gun a good amount. I don't know. I don't have a good feeling about this.
Yeah, it's I'm gonna bring up, there's the image here of the UI and how busy it is. I mean, the numbers popping off in motion, like that stuff's gonna be coming and going and can be useful, but boy,
why are there so many icons floating
right
around?
There's so many icons. I mean, actually, it's a little bit cut off. Let me see if I can bring it in here so you guys can actually get like the bottom corner here and stuff. It's even worse. And then someone compared it to the Elden Ring meme of like, what if Elden Ring was like other modern games? And it's like, no, Suicide Squad legitimately worse than the joke. Like the joke,
Yeah.
It's legitimately worse. That is really buck wild. Yeah, this is a mess.
No, that's rough when you scroll between those two.
Yep. So I'm like, yeah, like honestly, right? I'm like, look at this Elden Ring joke. I'm like, listen, if I had to choose between the two, it's like definitely this Elden Ring fucking shit. Like somehow it's okay. They are probably taking one of the least comprehensible images from gameplay from Suicide Squad here, where like there's some explosion happening, and so it's like even hard to focus on the thing in the center of the screen, so you have no visual anchor. That's giving full benefit of the doubt. I still think, looking at this, even in the best case scenario,
the Batman meter on the right. What's the Batman meter? What the fuck is that?
Wasn't that like, yeah?
Is that like its influence in the area? Because this is the Batman sector, and there's the Batman like affiliated enemies. You can get +5 protection.
Against Batman, right? Yeah, whatever. Yeah, that's exactly what it has to be. It all has to be related. Jesus.
Oh, is it waveform? Is that radio chatter? Was that what that is? We get Batman radio chatter.
Yeah, that looks right.
All this, everything. Oh.
Yeah, Batman's mocking you while doing this. Maybe this is like a gameplay element. Like Batman overwhelms you with UI, and that's how he wins because he's just so smart. I hate this. I am very interested to see what the final product, how people feel about it once they're actually playing it. If this stuff is as distracting as it seems here.
Right. And I mean, I think I've seen at least one preview point this out. Like in the game, you're doing things like killing Flash and other people are dying and like the aliens are invading the world. It's hard to imagine that there's not just going to be some like finger snap reset at the end of this anyways.
Yeah. I mean, and that's not about like, oh, hey, the villains are being bad guys and we can't handle that because we're just weak little story people. No, it's like we just don't believe this game, the stakes that they're setting out. And that's also a tough place for this game to start from. Dunking on Suicide Squad is fun to a certain extent because like just going back, like you're making a Suicide Squad game.
Yeah,
it is moved into sad and worrisome for me. Like this is like, I mean, I don't even enjoy this really that much anymore.
At a certain point, it's like, hey, this seemed like a bad idea. And in some sense, it's like, because I'm stupid. And I'm like, I guess I was proven right. Okay, cool. Now I'm worried that this great studio, Rocksteady, and all these people, it's like, okay, what's going to happen if this game comes out and isn't great? Are they going to have support like, say, the Redfall developers have, where it's like, okay, yeah, that didn't work out, but it's okay. We're still going to like, fund you through to the next game. You'll be all right. Or was Warner Brothers going to take the first opportunity they can get here and just say, oh, that's it for Rocksteady, I guess. And again, I feel like maybe I'm really putting the cart in front of the horse here with that. This game could still come out and be good or be a success despite not being good. Who knows? But it is worrisome.
Many of the previews did have some positive things to say about the cutscenes and the writing. And they said there were some genuinely funny jokes, and their narrative seems to be a strong point with good characterization and banter and during the fights. So,
hey, Mr. J.
Yeah, if you're a DC fan and you love Harley Quinn, you are probably going to be eating here, I suppose. All right. We'll find out soon. That game's coming out, bro, in a few weeks, few months. We'll be playing that game and know for ourselves.
Okay.
All right. Final one before we take a break. Taiwanese insider reports on Switch successors, improved specs, and $400 price. This is from Go Nintendo. Everyone just hold your horses. We'll get to this. Basically, there is a website in Taiwan that has details. They often share about stuff. It's not always accurate. In fact, it's very rarely accurate. It seems like most of the time they are speculating. This seems like one of those cases. They are saying that the Switch will have a Nvidia T239 processor, 8 gigabytes of RAM, 64 gigabytes of storage, greatly improved battery life, 120 hertz refresh rate screen, and a price of $400. Mike, I believe $400. That Nvidia 239 processor, that seems like one that they might be using, seems likely. 8 gigabytes of RAM and 64 gigabytes of storage seem a bit low to me. And honestly, that's the stuff that really makes me think this is probably not accurate. And then the 120 hertz refresh rate screen, that's possible only because Nvidia, all of its DLSS technology works even better at high refresh rates. So them being like, hey, maybe we should just go for a 120 hertz screen. It's possible, especially because this thing's going to dock into many TVs that already have 120 hertz screens. So these things are possible. I just don't think that this Taiwanese story actually has any real accurate information. So this has been going around. How do you feel about the 120 hertz screen as a possibility? Does that seem even reasonable to you?
I mean, until you explained the thing about Nvidia, that seemed like absolute bananas to me. I don't know why you need anything more than 60 frames per second on a Switch 2. Especially, hopefully in the Switch 2 we have a lot more 60 FPS games. That's all.
Right, that's what we're aiming for right now. Yes.
The most.
Yeah.
Never even thought about 120 frames. That would be beyond excessive to me. But if that helps with DLSS or whatever, then fine, sure.
And then 8 gigabytes of RAM. God, that would be rough if it was that low. These days you get one of these mini computers from a Chinese manufacturer, and it's got 32 gigabytes of RAM, and the whole thing costs $250. So it's Nintendo. They could still do this, but boy, I bet developers have been very loud about wanting more RAM. That's definitely the thing they've wanted more of the most on Switch.
Yeah, that's concerning. So hopefully it's just not true.
Yes, and this is very likely not true. But we are going to be in this zone for a few weeks now, where every other day you're going to get inundated with specs and lists of details about the new Nintendo hardware. We'll do our best to try to filter out most of that noise. That's actually the biggest reason I brought the story in, is to say, hey, this is going to be happening. Keep an eye out for it, but probably don't believe anything for quite some time. We'll know when we know, and until then, we'll just keep trying to guess.
Someone in chat said MetaQuest 3 has 8 gigabytes of RAM. Is that right?
Yeah,
and this would still be twice as much as the Switch right now is 4 gigabytes. I guess it's hey, it's twice as much.
I suppose listen, 8 gigabytes is definitely not impossible. It's not impossible, but. God, I'm the Xbox Series S is at 10 gigabytes, and around 9 of that is usable, and developers aren't super happy about that. Listen, I just think if they can get to 12, 16 gigabytes, that'd be much, much better. It's Nintendo, though. 8 gigabytes could certainly happen. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we got a lot more news. We'll get to all of that right after this, so please stick with us. We're back, and we are going to talk about how many first-party Nintendo games are seemingly going out of print. This is from My Nintendo News. A number of high-profile first-party Nintendo games are seemingly going out of print, at least in North America. The news was spotted by Nintendo, with some retailers removing the listed games below from their inventory. It is not clear why this is happening, but there's the prospect that they could be introduced as Nintendo Select titles, seen as the Nintendo Switch's successor is presumably on the horizon. The list of games that have seemingly been not delisted, but gone out of print and in some way removed from these inventories is Paper Mario: The Origami King, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening, Pikmin 3 Deluxe, Metroid Dread, Kirby Star Allies, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, Fire Emblem's Three Houses and Engage, Yoshi's Crafted World, WarioWare Get It Together, Nintendo Switch Sports, Super Mario Odyssey, Splatoon 2, Super Mario Maker 2, and Mario Strikers Battle League. Like I could see a Nintendo Selects thing happening. We speculated last night that maybe they get new boxes to indicate, hey, this is a game that works on Switch too. Maybe a bit early for that. It's also possible that this is nothing, right? That this is actually just a momentary lapse while they shift production to some new facility or something like that. Honestly, at a certain point, that's almost the most likely scenario here, is that this isn't anything and we are just spotting some small gully in inventory and that stuff will all bounce right back. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, it's like when you look at this list, you could maybe see how it would make for a player's choice collection.
Yeah.
Then there's some Fire Emblem Engage is almost a year old, somewhere around there. It's not been around that long. So it's strange, especially in the timing with the Switch 2 coming out. Like you said, who knows what's going on? Maybe these games will even get, if backwards compatibility is really going to be a thing in Switch 2, maybe these games get repackaged in a way that emphasizes that on them.
Yeah, that happened with a bunch of Xbox games. The Xbox Series X and S games that ran on Xbox One, they got like new packaging to be like, hey, Xbox Series X and S are listed first and foremost, so you could see that. It makes some sense. It's just going to depend on how backward compatibility works. Still, though, we just need more information here. This seems like we don't really know what's happening, and people are jumping to conclusions in a lot of cases, I think. But people are talking about this, and this was like a going around yesterday, so I figured we could talk about it, try to figure it out. I don't know. What do you think is the most likely? If you had to place a bet, what do you think is happening here?
I mean, you got that production thing you said. It could just be that. I wouldn't be surprised if there is new box art or something that again just says playable on Switch 2 at some point, although it's maybe a little early for that. I mean, it could even just be like, hey, we don't need to make as many physical games for store shelves these days. Anyways, people are buying a lot of these digitally. Although Nintendo games, they still do sell on store shelves in places like Walmart. Yep. So I don't know why you wouldn't just stop doing that. So I don't know. Maybe it's just a production line hiccup or change. It's either that or the player select / new box art kind of thing. Some kind of slight change. It's not like, again, there's too many big games in here and recent games for this to be like, yeah, these are just games that we decided to stop selling on storm shelves forever.
I mean, maybe all like the resupply of all these games was on like a ship that got commandeered by pirates, which is like a new thing, or not a new thing. I think it's happening again around like the Horn of Africa. These ships are being pirated again. And that's like, that went away for a while, and now like everyone's like, this is going to cause a lot of problems. I'm like, oh, okay, well maybe
pirates are back.
Pirates are back. That's the thing, yeah. All right, more Nintendo news. Nintendo finding more partners to work on games based on Nintendo IPs. This is from My Nintendo News. Nintendo-related rumors have been flying all over the place for the last few days, and not just because of the next Nintendo console. However, for a console to be successful, there's obviously needs to be games. That said, part of why Nintendo has been able to release so many first-party games is because the company has been collaborating with multiple studios to do so. There is a new rumor that has appeared today suggesting that Nintendo is looking into finding even more studios to collaborate with. GamesIndustry.biz's head, Christopher Dring, shout out to Dring, said in an article published yesterday that I also know that Nintendo is actively meeting with independent developers to find new partners. Some of that is around publishing indie games, which Nintendo does from time to time, but it's also seeking studios that could work on some of its IPs. Nintendo regularly works with third-party teams, including Bandai Namco, Team Ninja, Platinum Games, Mercury Steam, WayForward, and Grezzo. But the company is looking to add to that roster, and I know of 3 studios that are deep in conversation around making games based on Nintendo brands. This is a strategy Nintendo has explicitly stated that they are going after when it comes to like, hey, we want to find more partners to work with. But the understanding there at the time, at least in most people's estimation, was that Nintendo was talking about like Bandai Namco level of big third-party partners. This suggests that it could go all the way up and down the stack, down to indie studios, which is what we've been asking for forever, Mike. This sounds great to me. I don't know. How do you feel?
Yeah, I think we were all kind of disappointed when we got Cadence of Hyrule, and it was fantastic. And we're like, oh, wow, Nintendo's going to give its IP to indie studios now. Then nothing else really happened there. And that seemed strange. It seemed like a bummer. But now that seems back on the table. And, I hope it's not just, oh, yeah, sure, you can get Zelda and Mario. I hope this is a way that they can keep some of their older, maybe more obscure franchises alive or relevant by getting indie partners that make sense, that probably already have a good amount of passion for specific franchises to work on those games.
Yeah, and those studios would have almost certainly grown up playing Nintendo games. So many studios are just happy to put games out on the Switch. That gets them really excited. The idea of then getting a chance to work on some of these Nintendo IPs would probably be very exciting to them. And this is a strategy that Atari did for a while, where they're like, hey, we're gonna let people pitch us and say, hey, we want to make a game based on this. We got a lot of weirder games that weren't quite Pac-Man Championship Edition DX level, but they were trying to go in that direction. I think that's how we got that recent Yaris Revenge game that was actually pretty decent. So it's like, hey, I love this idea. I hope it works. And with Nintendo's producers sort of being like, we got to grow in ways that are sustainable, this seems like a good way of doing that. And I think what this is probably going to result in us getting significantly more Nintendo games per year, not double, but 2 or 3 more Nintendo games per year. Even if they're all indie scale, I'm more than happy with that. I think that'd be great. If we got several Cadence of Hyrule type games per year, that would only make the Switch and Switch 2 better.
Right. I mean, a time where games are taking longer and longer to make, and we're seeing lots of slow years from the likes of PlayStation and Xbox. It's good that Nintendo kind of has plans to make sure that they can continue releasing several games a year. There's this. They've been expanding their offices and their own internal studios in Japan also, right? So even though Switch 2, if, games will probably be harder to make for that because they're just going to have more detail. That's always going to make things a bit more challenging. Hopefully this will offset some of that.
Yes, there will probably be you're right. There's going to be a little bit of growing pains for Nintendo studios going from 1080 assets to 4K. It will probably be not nearly as bad as it was for a lot of publishers and a lot of studios 10, 15 years ago. Because there was
except for Game Freak, they're going to have a real hard time still.
Game Freak's it's on its own timeline. Yes, it's going to have to figure everything out the hard way, but Nintendo will be able to look to resources in a way that a lot of studios could not in the past. All right, next story. Twitch is reportedly laying off 35% of its staff. This comes from Sophie McAvoy at gamesindustry.biz. Twitch is laying off 500 employees this month, according to a Bloomberg report. This is according to sources familiar with the plans, which the outlet said may be officially announced today. Bloomberg suggested that the cuts are a result of concerns over losses and the departure of a number of executives. GamesIndustry.biz has reached out to Twitch for further clarification. This is the bad hits keep coming this year already, and obviously they were happening all throughout last year in terms of people losing their jobs in the games industry and the surrounding industries. It's not slowed down so far this year. If anything, it's picked up with 1,800 people being cut from Unity, and that was 25% of their workforce, I believe. Now Twitch cutting 35% and 500 people. It's terrible. And the tough thing here is Twitch has never really been a success in terms of making money. It's never actually done that well. It's just at some point it's Amazon, you could probably continue to figure that out, and now they just seem to have lost interest, and that means a bunch of people have to leave. It sucks. How do you feel about this, Mike?
I mean, that seems to be the root of the problem, right? It's somebody has to figure out how to get Twitch to make money. But man, I don't understand how you can have a company lose that many people, 35%, and what's the next day look like when they're all suddenly gone? How the heck do you get everything working still? You probably don't. It's probably going to maybe get a little rough. It's probably going to get a bit uneven over at Twitch. That just absolutely sucks. And it's, again, yeah, it is worrisome because it's a big problem. We have this thing that seems integral to the way we think about games these days with live streaming and streamers and that element of it. And there's basically one website that dominates that, and it can't make money.
Mm-hmm.
So what the heck do we do? And I'm seeing now this was just reported as happening.
It's confirmed.
Looks like it's been confirmed. Yeah. So that is That is horrible, and I hope something. Again, it's like I don't know what. I hope something happens here where Twitch can kind of figure things out.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like this is the one of the another indicator of the continuing like decomposition of the useful internet. Like Twitter is just become so. Twitter got pretty good there in the years before Elon Musk. It got pretty decent at the things that people were complaining about, like, hey, you spread disinformation, and you got too many Nazis. And it's like one day I woke up and it's like I don't see that many Nazis anymore. And the first thing I see about disinformation each day on Twitter is a tweet from Twitter saying, "Here, this thing's fake, just so you know." And it's like, okay, wow, you guys seem to have a pretty good handle on these things. And then Elon Musk comes in, fires a bunch of people, and now the site is barely useful. It barely functions a lot of times. Like I try to like load a video, and it's like a roll of the dice whether that's going to work or crash the app or anything. And it's just it's bad. And it's like, is that Twitch's fate here? Like you're saying, like you go in, you're like, you're going to fix things. It's like, man, are you even going to be able to maintain what is there, or is entropy now going to come for Twitch, and we're going to kind of just be like coasting on fumes while they try to make some profit from this thing and like let it just kind of skid into a disrepair. I hope not, but that feels like where we're headed right now. And I don't know if people are like looking at like what, like, hey, I want to be playing games on the internet. I want to like treat that as a hobby and potential job. It's hard to recommend going to Twitch these days. YouTube's not great either, but like you can go, like the discoverability on YouTube is eclipsing Twitch in a real way. Like you can actually find an audience on YouTube, and Twitch is like, no, good luck, man. They just don't seem to have figured that out, and it doesn't seem like they ever will. There's some hopes for Twitch, but it's the kind of hopes of like, hey, maybe we go to AV1, and that will save us money on how much it costs to actually distribute this content. And it's like, oh, if you're hoping for some technological change to make it so you're profitable, to me that just sounds like you aren't investing in new ideas. You aren't being creative. You're not going to be thinking laterally and coming up with the next big thing that's going to make Twitch better. Those days are done, and that's pretty disappointing and sad.
Right. But like there are such a lot of people who do rely on Twitch. That is how they make their livelihood. So I mean, it's not just Twitch employees, and obviously they are taking the brunt of it right now, and absolutely sucks. But there's so many people who do depend on Twitch, or even just people who do like Twitch. Despite everything, I like that platform. I like streaming on there. I like watching my friends stream on there. I want them to figure things out. I want that to become profitable and healthy and successful.
Agreed. All right. Sony gives update on God of War and Horizon TV shows. This comes from Eddie McCoo at GameSpot. Sony is pushing ahead with more gaming content for TV, including God of War and Horizon shows. But what's the status of these projects? During Sony's Consumer Electronics Show event this week, Sony Pictures Television president Catherine Pope confirmed that writing is now underway on both. We're delighted to have writing underway on 2 new IP-based projects, Pope said. Additionally, Pope said that the team at Sony Pictures TV is excited to work on season 2 of the Twisted Metal series for Peacock. We don't know much about these series and these shows. I'll say that during the what was it called when the writer's strike during the writer's strike, there was a lot of talk about these Horizon scripts that were sitting around, and they were like, man, these things need to be rewritten because they're way too expensive. We should probably just dump this show. And it seemed like the strike ended at just the right time to save that from happening. And so the show is coming back and the writers are working on it. So yeah, the writing does seem to be the process that they're in right now. I have not watched Twisted Metal, Mike. I don't think there's much of a chance of me ever watching Twisted Metal. I don't care about the Last of Us show. God of War is like the one, like, maybe that could be cool. I wouldn't mind watching some cool battles where a dude kills gods. That could be neat, but even that, it seems unlikely for me. I know you're not much of a TV guy either. Are any of these things moving you?
TVs and movies are mid, but I do like Gravity Rush. So I guess I'm happy Gravity Rush is living on as a movie, although it's really weird to me that that's live action. With Gravity Rush was one of the most, hey, we made like a stylistic anime look like a video game thing ever. So okay, you're gonna go, it's gonna be real, everything green screen, the live action kind of thing. We'll see. but I guess again, Gravity Rush lives on in some way. It's maybe being destined for failure. The Dan's in chat saying, "Is Disney not TV and movies?"
You're a parks
I
guy.
don't watch. Yeah, I'm really a parks guy first and foremost, and yeah, I like watching the animated films still, but even that has not been great a lot of the times lately.
And lately it's been rough. Yes, Ghost of Tsushima is another project they have happening, and sure, yeah, that video game is basically just, hey, what if we made a Kurosawa film into a game? So hey, it's gonna work the other way.
That's my thing with a lot of these is like, hey, isn't that already basically a TV show or movie? But hey, when they actually make them TV shows, like with The Last of Us, a lot of people seem to care. I mean, my timeline was nothing but people having opinions about some casting for The Last of Us second season. So apparently, this is big deal stuff, Jeff.
Fair enough. We'll see. With these shows, it's always like, I think maybe I'll watch them, and then I never actually end up doing so. But give it a
think that far. I know immediately. Not watching that. That's not happening. I'll go play Twisted Metal again. That'd be fun.
There was never any risk of me watching Twisted Metal. I'll say that one for sure.
Even when, I'm glad that it apparently was better than people were fearing.
Yes,
That's nice. But
it has nothing to do with the quality. It's just like, that is not how I'm spending my time these days. There's like shows I do like, and I don't have time for them anymore.
Dan, did you know that the people who made the original Twisted Metals made like an underwater vehicle combat game that no one ever talks about for PlayStation? I want to play that. I forget what it's called. I just saw a video on that. That blew my mind. Because somebody else made Twisted Metal 3 and 4, and then those guys... Critical Depth. Dan says it's not good. Well, that's not going to stop me.
Yeah, when has that ever stopped us?
Yeah.
He also asked me during the part where we were talking about people losing their jobs. Dan just burst in like, "Tell everyone you're playing Ride to Hell Retribution." Let's give it a second, Dan.
Somber story. He just came in with immediate Dan energy, like, "Hey, you're gonna finish your Blake game today, honk honk."
Oop! Squirt some water in your face.
But yeah, Dan's gonna play, or Jeff's gonna beat Ride to Hell today for sure. Absolutely, Dan.
Yeah, we know you weren't listening. Of course we know. All right, last story here. Nvidia's G-Sync Pulsar is an anti-blur monitor tech aimed squarely at your eyeballs.
Pulsar's a kind of star, Jeff. That's not a
monitor.
What
listen,
are you talking about?
Nvidia did this, all right? I didn't have anything to do with this.
Okay.
Kevin Purdy at Ars Technica. Basically, the short version of this is CRTs were really good at making like images look good even when you were like turning and moving, and LCDs have been shitty at it since the beginning of time. So you get you lose a lot of detail when you move. And guess what you do in video games? You fucking move a lot. So Nvidia's like, finally, like, we're going to come up with a super advanced technology to address this very basic thing that has always sucked with LCDs. Hey, whatever. Let's go for it. We're not like going back to CRTs anytime soon. So having this as an option to improve image quality in movement will be great. There's going to be some early monitors from like Asus that are going to use it. It's like the new generation of G-Sync. G-Sync was like a big deal early on, and then everyone had their way of doing G-Sync, and now it doesn't really matter that much anymore. This is like, hey, what if we came up with something new to make things even better? And I'm excited about this, but it's very inside baseball for graphics and stuff like that.
Yeah, sure, I'm all for it.
Yeah, like at a certain point, it's probably going to come out if it's good. People will just be like, "This is the monitor to get," and that's all anyone will really need to know about it. But yeah, G-Sync going to have some cool new technology once again.
G-Sync was always just like a universal V-Sync kind of thing, right? Like,
it was an Nvidia G. It was not like it's the next generation of VSync. What it does is VSync is like, we're going to lock you to 60 frames, or we're going to lock you to like one whole frame, and we're just going to wait for the frame. And G-Sync, the easiest way of explaining it is the computer could talk to the monitor and say, here, the frame is ready, so just show it right now. And so the monitor could adjust its frame rate basically to be like show the whole frame when it was ready, so there was no screen tearing ever or anything like that, and the frame got to the screen as soon as possible. So it's the best of both worlds.
Is it like that cinema mode on the TVs that your grandma keeps on?
No, that's actually frame generation, and that's not cinema mode. That cinema mode fixes that, but like the smooth mode, that's frame generation, and NVIDIA has that as well, and it's actually pretty decent. It adds a little bit of lag, but nothing like if you use your TV's motion smoothing, which just makes games completely unplayable. Cool. All right, that does it for the news. I have a poll question. We'll get to that here in a second. In the meantime, Mike, why don't you tell people what you have going on?
How come I'm your only guest who ever ends early?
It's not
I'm
early.
just
We're like 11:53. This is always when I'm like looking to name the
What
show.
else ends with you at like 11:58? No,
You are. You're concise. This is
It's
not
right.
a problem with you, Mike. These are good things.
Okay,
I was like, I
then
went
tell
into the
me
show
how I'm
today
good.
thinking, I'm glad Mike's there because we won't just go on and on and on. I was happy about that.
On.
Yeah. Also, yeah, get the fuck out of here. Take a hint.
Get the
Yeah.
hell out of here. What you ask me?
Where can people find you on the internet?
Yeah, Tokoto on Twitch and Twitter and everything. I'm going to have a review for Prince of Persia: Lost Crown go up tomorrow on gamesbeat.com. Check that out. Yeah, and then Jeff and I tomorrow night we're doing an in-person show for our Game S Decides podcast where we'll be doing Game of the Year and some other shenanigans. We'll talk about Prince of Persia. We'll talk about Prince of Persia also here on Giant Bomb Friday on Bombcast Revengeance. So I'm gonna have a lot to say about that. So that'll be fun.
Yep. Looking forward to that. Yeah, Eamon Goldie. I actually got this from Ford Field when I went to the game on Sunday. So it's a Lions NFC Championship hoodie.
Yeah, the PlayStation Plus premium games dropped, and the only thing you need to know is that it includes the Star Wars Episode 1, the Phantom Menace game for PlayStation 1.
I really like that game. There's something about the way it looks that I really like. Yeah.
Well, it's very PlayStation-y, and
yes,
that's an ambitious game. It's like a third-person shooter and action game with like the wonky controls you'd expect from that. And then one chapter, it just turns into Grim Fandango. It runs on that same engine, I think. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, absolutely. So I'd like to play that again.
All right.
Nothing.
You see what Sean said to Dan? Is that what you're laughing about?
Yeah, I'm laughing about Dan and Chet saying, I beat it this morning. Yeah, we don't need to do that.
All right. Did you buy a PS4 Pro? That was the poll question from Monday. 38% said yes, 62% said no. So it's like that. That's both like, okay, way more than the 15% of the general audience that we saw from the leaked info.
That's so low. That's surprising. Oh, God, shut up, Dan, with his broken finger. I know how much you've been playing Prince of Persia. You shut the hell up. I don't want to hear it anymore.
Yeah, I mean, but that, 15%, we saw like that's how much it sold, like 15 million PS4
man.
Pros. But in the very hardcore audience that we have listening to this show, 38% bought it. So it's like double.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, these are the people that spend a lot of money on gaming. We are essentially, and I count myself among you, being taken advantage of by these companies that were like, hey, we could sell more hardware to the same assholes all over again.
Oh, if there was a PlayStation 5 Pro, I'd want one immediately.
I would get one. I feel like right today I'm like, I don't want one, but if there was one, I would need one and I would get it.
I kind of want one. I don't know. I have a hard time knowing if my performance problems with Jedi Survivor or even Final Fantasy 16, if that's because, if only the hardware was better, or if those games just weren't optimized enough. I don't know what the problem actually is.
It's a little column A, a little column B. All right, got a new poll question. Does Indiana Jones matter to you? Yes or no? We will get the results of that on Game S Mornings on Thursday, tomorrow morning, here on Giant Bomb. Speaking of Giant Bomb, later today, we're going to be playing Blight Club. Before that, we're going to be playing Pacific Drive here in a little bit. I'm going to get all that set up. We'll be playing that, go through a couple runs there. I'm looking forward to that. I haven't played much of that. It's a preview build, but we'll take a look at that and see how that actually goes. Tomorrow we'll have Voicemail Dump Truck. We're going to be, there's some other stuff. What are we doing? I think, we're playing Prince of Persia. Things like that, so you can look out for that.
Yeah,
and then
aren't we doing the Fantasy Critic draft too?
That'll be on Thursday. On Thursday, we'll be doing the Fantasy Critic draft for Giant Bomb and doing our Prince of Persia review on Bomb. I'm gonna keep saying Beastcast because I think BCR. Bombcast Revengeance. So look out for all of that, everybody.
That was a good name, Beastcast. I get it because there's the word East in it.
He caught up, everybody. There it is. All right, Mike. Thank you so much for spending today talking with me about video games.
You're welcome. And we're closer to the top of the hour, so I feel better.
This is how it is. I like 52, 53, I start wrapping up, and then we go through all this bullshit.
Oh, God, I'm so sorry. I forgot to ask. So what have you been hearing about Ridge Racer lately?
You son of a bitch. Thank you all for listening to the best audience in gaming. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and new Ridge Racer on Switch.
Yeah.
That was a joke, everybody.